Let's call this meeting to order. Can we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I think we are starting with a presentation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi, would you like to come forward? Just,
Sure.
you can bring the chair and make yourself comfortable.
Okay. I'll just sit here so I can see all of you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Ellen Miramontes, and I'm a senior trails and open space planner with the Montgomery County Planning Commission. And I'm here with Bill Hartman, who is the manager of our open space and trail section of the Planning Commission. And we're here to share with you about a recent study we completed called the Return on the Environment, looking at the county as a whole. And essentially, I'm going to present I'm going to try to keep it I understand I have a limited time period, very brief overview summary. And then I have some summary brochures and some full copies of the study if anybody is interested in that. But just kind of giving you a big picture and then leaving times for some discussion and questions. So there's a lot of big numbers in here. I'm going to try to move through that pretty quickly. But essentially you might ask, what is a return on environment study? It's looking at protected open space and putting a number on the value of it in terms of both savings, earnings, and then costs that are avoided because of having that protected open space. So we all value open space for a lot of other reasons. It's beauty, for wildlife, all of that. But this is actually putting a dollar value on open space that is protected. And so in 2011, there was a return on environment study done for the southeastern region. And it was put together by DVRPC, the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, together with Green Space Alliance. So that was back in 2011. DVRPC approached us to see if we wanted to do an update for Montgomery County only. We said yes, we'd be very interested in that. More than 10 years had passed. They got a grant, and so they were able to pay for half of the study through the grant. We paid for the remaining half, the county. So let's see. I'm just going to jump right in. This gives a little bit of the background I was just telling you.
Just point out the lights.
Oh, yeah, that would probably help.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was this study in 2011. Chester County did one in 2019. Then we were contacted 2020 by DVRPC. They obtained the grant. And then in 2021, we began a year-long process that concluded last spring. We provided technical support. We put together a 32-member advisory committee. We provided all of the data for the consultant calculations. We helped to select the 4 case studies, put together photographs, introduction, conclusion, stuff like that. So what came out of it is a final report, and I do have some copies here, as well as on our website. We have a slide presentation that's narrated by the consultant, and then we have these summary brochures, and we've also put kiosk cards out at all the trails and parks in the county just to let people know about it. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. This map here shows currently the protected open space in the county, and you can see it's color-coded based on the type of open space. So you can see, of course, Valley Forge National Park, the great big blue. You can see Evansburg State Park, the kind of goldish color, and you can see all of the other types as well. What's very interesting is that 36% of the protected open space is municipally owned. So that's the majority of open space is in municipal ownership. And what we're talking about when we're talking about protected open spaces, we're talking about public parks and trails, preserved farmland, privately conserved land like natural lands and other land trusts like that, land that's protected in perpetuity. So this study looked at the value of open space in these 4 ways. So taking a look at how home and property values are affected, the economic activity that's generated from protected open space, at environmental services, cleaning our air and water, and direct use benefits, health and recreation, all of that, places to exercise and recreate. So taking a look first at home and property values, the consultants looked at, so you can see the circular graph here, they looked at within a quarter mile of protected open space, from that quarter mile to the half mile, and then the half mile total. Looked at the property values, and essentially it's through this hedonic regression model. So holding all other factors constant, what is the impact of that protected open space on the property value? And they found that in the county, you can see the bolded number there, that within that half mile of protected open space, each residential property, that it was increased in value by over $11,000. So, and that's just because it was close to the protected open space. So I'm just highlighting some of the big numbers. Now we're going to go into economic activity, and they looked at these 3 different types of economic activity. Protected farmland. I know there's not a huge amount of it here in Plymouth, but throughout the county there's a substantial amount. Protected open space, the management and maintenance of that, and that includes also parks as well as natural areas, and open space related tourism. So in terms of the numbers that they were able to calculate related to these 3 values, you can see pretty darn big numbers here. Protected farmland, an annual impact of $8 million, and remember this is countywide. Protected open space, an annual impact of $112 million. Open space related tourism, $39 million. So now I'll move to environmental services. And what they were looking at were these 6 services you see listed here. So going from air pollution removal down to carbon sequestration and storage. And they essentially calculated the economic benefits here. So here's another graphic showing the economic value, and it's totaled. You can see that big number in the center there at $31.6 million annually in ecosystem services benefits. So this is things like flood mitigation, water quality, carbon sequestration. So if nature in these protected open spaces weren't providing these services for us, what would we have to pay to provide what natural areas are doing for us? And this number over here on the right, the lifetime carbon storage benefits summary, it's a pretty impressive number. If you're looking at all of the trees in Montgomery counties, only in the protected open space, they were able to figure out that they store 570,950 tons of carbon are stored in those trees in their lifetime. And if all of that carbon, if those trees were all cut down, all that we would need to pay $97.4 million to mitigate for that, to have clean air. So it's like, wow. It's pretty amazing to see the numbers put together like that. And the consultants did all of these calculations. So then moving to direct use benefits. So as we know, preserved open space provides value for all the recreational activities that are enjoyed upon it. And what they were looking at is the value, a consumer's willingness to pay. So what would a person be willing to pay to belong here, or a gym, to pay a monthly fee to go exercise and recreate somewhere? But they're getting that experience for free in public parks and trails. So you can see at the bottom the willingness to pay by the average number of visits per year, by the total households in Montgomery County. You get a total of $219 million in annual recreational value because of this protected open space. And that equates then to $680 in savings per year for each household. So that's how they were calculating that. And then here looking at healthcare cost savings. So once again, you can see this equation that they put together going backwards, but you can see all of these different things at the bottom add up to an annual healthcare cost savings of $467 million. So because people are leading healthier lifestyles, because they're recreating, there is not as much lost productivity, less going to the doctor, less being incapacitated and not being able to work, those kinds of things. So they calculated the benefit for that. And then just to summarize, I'm not going to go through all these numbers because I'll provide the brochure to you. It has all of this in here. But you can see that the value of open space really does add up quite substantially. And now, so moving forward, we are doing our best to get the message out about this study to all of the 62 municipalities, and that's exactly what we're doing here this evening, is sharing the results of the study to you. We think this data really is powerful, and everybody ought to know it about it. And open space preservation is a long-term effort, and we here as the county, we're a partner, and we're not, as Bill likes to say, we're not going anywhere. So we can be a partner in local open space preservation efforts. We have funding that can be leveraged together with both state and local funding to acquire open space. So we're trying to pound the pavement, communicate about this, and encourage folks to reach out. I was just thinking about things to consider and think about here for Plymouth. So home and property values, even though there might not be as large of open spaces as perhaps in the western part of the county, even those small little bits of land can have a really big impact. Right now, we're just an example. Springfield has put together an application through a grant program we have called Montco 2040. They're hoping to purchase a 2.75 acres of land to provide a connection between some schools and a senior center. And it's small, but will have a powerful impact and probably affect the property values positively, and certainly recreational, provide recreational benefits and all of that. So an economic activity here, mostly be related to the parks and open space maintenance. So paying folks that work for the township. Of course, there's a little bit of farming, Maple Acres here. And environmental services, open spaces can really provide that natural flood mitigation. And those can be improved through enhancing the riparian buffers and, of course, helping with pollutant removal in air and water. There's a wonderful, nice open space just down the street here on Jolly that does that. Direct use benefits, of course, the opportunity for parks and trails and places for residents to lead healthy lifestyles and to exercise. So to let you know also about here in Montgomery County, some municipalities have chosen to put together a local open space funding program. And so 9 of the 62 currently have local open space funding programs in place. White Marsh has had one in place for quite a long time. I don't know the exact year, but and the most recent municipality to do so is Lower Frederick. And these funding programs are most commonly through earned income tax, but can also be through a bond. And they range, like Lower Frederick, it's very small, it's 0.05%. And then White Marsh, it's 0.25%. But then these funds can be used to acquire open space and can be leveraged off of funding either the county has or the state to maybe purchase, like Springfield is doing this tiny little acreage. And something that's happened just recently with the act related to this at the state level is now this wasn't the case before, just a year ago, April 2022, 25% of these funds, a quarter of these funds that are gathered at the local level can be used not just for acquiring, but also for maintaining the space that you already have. So even if you weren't to purchase or to preserve any new land, these monies, 25% of these monies can be put towards, the words are to develop, improve, design, engineer, and maintain property acquired for open space benefits. So that is a new opportunity for this funding, which is really great. And I'm going to end it there. I probably talked longer than I should. But I'm hoping that I sparked some interest, and maybe you guys have some questions for Bill and I about the findings.
Flip the light back on. But thank you. That was fascinating. Do we have a link on our website to like the study so that people can?
What I'll do is I'll share these. The summary brochure with you, and then there is a link to all of the information on that.
Okay.
But if you guys have some specific questions, I can answer those now.
I was going to ask you, what would the likelihood be of using money for maintenance as opposed to like acquisition of open space and other things? Because we have a lot of maintenance, but not that many more lands to acquire.
Yeah.
I was just curious what the odds were on that.
With the what?
What the odds were. Like, is a certain percentage of the grant money for maintenance, a certain...
So with the local open space spending programs, or if you were through an income tax to gather some funds, you could use 25% of that for the purchase of any open space. And that's brand new, just last April 2022. So it really opens things up nicely.
But that would come from our.
Yes. We do have grant money at the county level that we can provide to municipalities who are interested in purchasing open space. Most often, it tends to be a partnership, like maybe a natural lands with county money, with perhaps some local money. It's different for each municipality because each municipality has different amounts of money that they have available for such things. So, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, I mean, one thing that, part of the reason we want to come out and talk to groups like you is that, we want to make you aware of the results of this study, which I think are really important because I think there's a preconception that developing land is always more economically beneficial to a municipality versus preserving it as open space. And I think that this study proves that preserving it as open space actually does provide economic value. Because when you develop a piece of property, yes, the tax base is increasing, but you're also increasing the amount of infrastructure that's required to maintain, whether it's sewers, water, snow plowing, et cetera, all the things that go with housing development. That's one thing. The other thing that Ellen just mentioned is that we want to make all the municipalities aware that the county does have an open space fund. And typically, if you look at our budget, which is public and presented each year, we typically have between $2 and $3 million in that fund. And that money is available to municipalities and nonprofits to help preserve land across the county. Now, typically, and this isn't currently a requirement, typically the county asks that that money be matched 1-for-1. So if you're asking for $200,000 of open space funds from the county, we would like to see $200,000 coming from either the municipality itself or other grant sources to serve as a match, essentially, for that, because that shows buy-in and a partnership for that acquisition. But a lot of people don't know that the county has this money available. So now you do, and that's part of our mission, is to get that word out. And if you're ever interested, or you have a piece of land, and like Ellen said, it doesn't need to be 100 acres to preserve. Half an acre in the middle of Norristown or in Pottstown, or an acre or 2 or 3 in Plymouth or Springfield can have immense benefit environmentally for the people who live there, and then all the economic reasons that Ellen just went through. So we don't want people to think this is only to preserve hundreds of acres. It can preserve a little patch of green space that's being threatened by development, that by preserving it, you're going to add value back to the community. So please know that we look at it in all different sizes.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you would know this off the top of your head, but like in White Marsh and Lower Frederick, where they have an earned income tax, on average, that's about X dollars per household per year. Like, what does that come out to, like in terms of the tax imposition to a family?
I don't have that calculated, but like Lower Fredericks, it's very small. So it's 0.05%. It's tiny. But they've been able to establish enough funding where they can leverage that funding to then get other grants, to get county money. And that match doesn't have to be 50% from the municipality. That match can be part state money, part from natural, it can be a variety of sources. So, and they're already beginning to purchase lands. And they just established that in 2020. So.
I think it's less than $100 a household. I mean, some would argue that's a lot of money, but when you look at overall the taxes you pay and the benefit you get from it, it's not significant.
That's what I was wondering, because it sounds like it's potentially not a heavy tax burden for potentially a significant benefit.
Yeah, I mean, the argument is that over time, when you have a small millage amount like that, it's going to take time to build that portfolio, that investment portfolio, so you can then spend it. But Lower Frederick is a great case study where that money is already being used 1 or 2 years into the program. It doesn't take long to, especially when you're in a populated area like this, it doesn't take long to build the value of that fund so that you can use it. So it can be relatively quick and relatively painless. It's just one tool in the toolbox of how to do this. We're not out here pushing it. It's just we want to make you aware that that's one way it's done.
Ellen, I know the last time we talked, you had mentioned like maintenance, that 25% could be used for maintenance, and you had pointed out like even the small space that's in front of the GPCC is a space which like I drive by every day and hadn't thought of like a maintenance opportunity. Can you just reflect on that a little bit?
Just the space right here?
Yes.
Yeah, so, and I should have said at the beginning of the presentation, I meant to, it was in my notes, I'm a resident here in Plymouth. So I know this community well. So I see opportunities all the time whenever I'm driving around. So yeah, that's a great example. Just right here in front of the community center, there's a large stormwater basin. That could be a wonderful rain garden. You could fill that with native plants and create, a butterfly habitat and wildflowers, and could be amazing. So there's opportunities as small as that, or even down the street, the little open space area that I mentioned earlier. You could do a riparian buffer along there and really gain some benefits. So some of that funding could be used for those kinds of projects. So it's a new opportunity with this Act 15. So we're available for any follow-up questions, anything you want to know about the study or the funding we have to offer. I don't know if there's any other specifics.
Sorry, I was late. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, you remembered.
I was wondering, I saw you.
How do you remember that?
I don't remember. Well, I don't remember. I just,
She's almost done with college now.
it's a teacher trick.
Yeah. I probably didn't need to do this, but oh well. Yeah. Thanks for getting that.
How do I look in the blue light? Couldn't get any worse.
Blue Man
Or
Group.
better.
We're on the Blue Man Group.
Have a good evening. Okay, bye, thank you. Thanks, guys.
Any takers for the 20-year service resolution for Michael Spornak, Police Department?
Sure.
John, you going to want to add anything to that? No.
He said he asked you. Oh, good. Sorry.
Down to administration, small games of chance. Did we just do this, or am I making that up?
I think we did this one. We did, it just didn't.
Just a reminder to me, I gave Karen, before we started the meeting, an application for Kellen to sign and send a check into the county.
So we don't need to do anything with this next week?
No.
resolution for the Department of Transportation, Public Police and Public Safety.
I just need somebody to read it. This has to do with, PennDOT is paying 100% of 3 traffic signals in the township where they're going to enhance the pedestrian crossings, and they need this resolution to go along with it. So it's just something that's.
I'd be glad to read that, but I can't wait to see what they do at Ridge and Chemical.
I was going to say Richard Chemical. Yes, that's one of the 3. And that, I wouldn't cross that.
I'm
as a
just
pedestrian.
thinking to myself, without
Yeah.
putting like little,
I know.
pedestrian bridges in, I
Yeah.
can't imagine.
It's either a tunnel or a bridge.
I agree.
That's the only options there.
The other one is Germantown and Lawnfall, and then Butler Pike.
Butler and
Keys.
Cedar Grove.
Which is Key
I'd
Street
love
on
to
our
see
side.
Germantown and
These are the
Chemical.
ones they picked, and they're free to us, so.
I know.
Yeah.
I can do this.
All right. Anything else for police, public safety?
No, sir, thank you.
Public Works and Sewer, Thomas Road Sewer Interceptor Improvements Waiver Request. What do we have here?
Yeah, so we have, there's a project going on there. There's a bunch of residents getting together to get public sewers on their street. It's a private street. They're asking for a waiver of the township portion of the sewer connection fee, which is $3,897 each. This waiver has been granted by council for other sewer projects. So they're getting together. They're gonna, they've engineered it. They're gonna install it. They're gonna get an easement down their private road, and then they have to dedicate the sewer to the township because DEP won't have it any other way. But they're paying for it, and then they're gonna hook up to it, and then they have to turn it over to us at the end. Right? But this helps them save almost $4,000 because they have to pay to construct it, and then they have to pay to get a private plumber to hook it up and hook them all up. It's a very expensive proposition. But this would be a next week motion and vote.
Any questions? Anybody want to take it? It's Thomas Road. That's Nick? No, that's Lynn. That's the border. That's like depending on what side of the road it's on.
Right across from the Cypress Thomas. That's right, Thomas Road. Up from the Graves.
Thomas Road is, I think it's Nick.
It's no one.
Yeah,
I think it would be
from
Nick.
Thomas Road.
Okay.
It's small because it's been.
B.
What to do about B.
Okay.
So that's the Plymouth Interceptor Phase 3B. Bids came in, I think Kellen told me we have 1.7 million budgeted for this. And the low bid was $4.3 million. The second low was just about 4.3 million, and the other one was $6.5 million. So we have to figure out, I guess Alan's recommendation is to reject all the bids, try to get some grant money. And that's his recommendation. Low bid, 4,222,000. The next low was 4,283,000. So this too early, very close. And then J.O. and Bradley was the one company that they've done other work for us. And they were almost $6.6 million. So I don't think we have 4.3 in the budget, to be honest with you right now. So that was Alan's recommendation, to reject the bids and see if we can go out and try to find some grant money, which takes time, and you never know if you're actually going to get the award, but find some other way to pay for that.
So to kind of recap, so originally we budgeted 1.5 or 1.6.
Well, I think that, this number, the need for this project has been talked about for years, and every couple of years
Decades,
decades, it goes up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably heard $1 million in the beginning, and then maybe $1.5 million. You're never really sure till you put it out to bid.
But it was originally in our budget for this year.
Yes, we were really hoping to do it because it went out to bid, and all the construction documents were prepared, and it's ready, here's what you have to do, and price tags.
So the plan would be to obviously not do it then this year, right?
If you
So-
don't have the money.
So to put it off until to consider it into next year's budget, but in the meantime, try to get grant funding
Right.
to make up
Some of that.
as much as we can.
Right.
Can we carry over the money allocated for this year to next year to
We could do that,
pile it on there?
yes.
Of course, by
But
next year, the
it's-
cost might go up.
True.
True.
And yes, and I don't know that we'll have, another 2.5 million to budget in next year's budget for it, but because the 1.7 we have it was in capital, so it's not been spent, because sewer capital, it's not been spent, it's been sitting there hoping to do this project. We won't double that in a year, you know what I mean? We won't,
No.
That's just been accumulating, we just.
But the cost to fix everything around it that's ongoing now, we might have to use that, some of that 1.5 in
Yeah,
the
we
budget,
just,
right?
we don't have the total for the sinkhole yet, but the first of the 3 bills was 112,000, which was not, I didn't think it was that bad, did you, Chris? I don't know, but 112,000?
You did a lot of work.
I thought,
It was
yes.
big.
I kept sending you guys the pictures, like I don't have
Yeah.
a chance to see them all, but it was a lot of work, and I thought his bill would be higher, to be honest. But there are 2 more bills coming in. There was a company that had to dispose of the asbestos-containing soils. That was a separate company, and then there was a geotech on site, making sure everything was done properly and compacted. I would think both of those bills would be less than the 112,000, but I don't know.
You're not a prognosticator, but will this thing hold for another year if we don't fix it this year?
Well, this is 10 years in the making, and we've been waiting. So this started out, phase 2 actually, which is a longer run, and they actually had a bore under Lee Drive, was 192,000. So when this thing first came up, we were like, okay, it'll be 150, 200,000. In year 1, it was probably 2014 when we talked about that, and then it was 1 point some million. And then all the issues we have in Norfolk Southern, trying to cross and bore under the railroad, was a lot of the issues. And here we are 10 years later, finally getting some bids. But there's a lot of unknowns. And I think Alan also had some measures in there to try to alleviate some costs moving forward with, checking for rock, doing some of the legwork that the builder or the contractors wouldn't have to do and spend money for. So we might have a little bit more data moving forward that might keep the costs down, but the unknown that we're kind of seeing here.
Yeah, once they get under the railroad, they're behind Party City, Giant, and then they go into that hillside that holds up 476, and the sewer is about 30 feet deep, they think.
Very deep.
So very, very deep, and you're already working into a hillside. So how do you dig 30 feet deep when you've got this very steep slope? So we think that's probably why, and it takes all the way down to Chemical Road, so which is a good distance, I guess. So yeah. Again, we wait, who knows what the bids will be later. They could be better if we knew more information, they could be worse, I don't know.
But we don't really have
We don't have a choice.
choice.
We don't have a choice right now, and we've added, so Alan did say he was going to get back to us on this remaining capacity in this existing sewer, because I guess South Payton's 79 new houses just went into that, they're all coming through here. Plus, there's 2 projects that have been approved, kind of guaranteed their sewerage, that haven't been built yet. There's the Holiday Inn, Plymouth Express, it's been approved, and then the Exeter office building, 5-story, 7-story, or whatever else they put there. They have their, so you really can't take that away from them because they've kind of been approved with their sewer capacity already assigned for them. So, yeah.
All right.
Okay. So I guess go forward with rejecting bids next.
Yeah, so that something we have to just make a motion to reject all bids. I'll take that. Mr. Manai?
Nothing tonight, sir.
I'm sorry, Chris, did you have anything additional?
Did not. Thank you.
All right. Subdivision all the way down to Sandy Hill, correct? Nick?
Yes. Yes, Nick has E and F, and G is for Lynn. And I didn't get that yet, but that's going to be an extension granted to a certain date for the Miller residents.
All right. Jim, anything?
Not right now, no.
Zoning.
I can do zoning.
Is that Kathy? Zoning, I did want to bring one to your attention. And that's the Yip.
Oh, God, it's the noodle place.
Unbelievable. So I think you should send council to oppose that one, personally.
Tell me where 710 is in
It's at
relation
the
to.
corner of Plymouth Rock Road, Township Line Road. It's on a diagonal. You know the
In the
one.
middle of a resident, yeah.
And completely in the middle of the residential zone, yeah. And they still want to live there too, and have this, most of the house be used for a restaurant and still live there.
And takeout, Grubhub and DoorDash coming in.
In totally residential zone. And residential across the street too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then going in and out off of Plymouth Rock Road the whole time, all traffic in and out. Of course, you know, the plans that they show don't meet any of our, like, land development requirements. Not that they're even thinking that they need to go through land development, but it doesn't meet any of that. And I guess, like, we didn't do a land development review. We could probably come up with a lot of reasons if we were to do that, but I think that they think they don't need that. I'm not sure, but. And of course, the one for the Preet has already been voted on as last month as an opposition.
Talk about that more later.
Yeah.
I have no problem opposing the township line, Lynn, that's you, so.
Oh, my God, I would, immediately I thought we would.
So we'll list opposition under this.
So when I read that, do I say, in addition? the
You
coun-
read them all first, and then at the end say we.
And at the
Yes,
end,
make a motion, make a motion to send the township solicitor to oppose that application.
Parks and Rec, Mr. Brady, anything new and exciting?
A busy couple of months when the weather comes down.
Anybody want to read all these good events here? Lynn? Any concerts this summer?
Yeah, we'll put those on. Concerts and movies.
Very good, very good. Citizen board vacancies. Karen, did anybody reach out to you about Parks and Rec? Did they email you?
I have quite a few to catch up on, but I don't think so.
Okay,
I
I think-
was looking at them always, but,
I think I have somebody for that. I'll double check.
okay, yeah.
I did ask them to email you, so.
Okay.
People are busy. If they haven't, hopefully they will. Anybody want to read the openings? Yeah, I'll read them. Anything else?